You've heard the saying, it's just hair. But when Zariah walked into the interview room, her hair was the reason she lost everything. In an instant, her worth was reduced to something as simple as the way her curls framed her face. Mocked, rejected. But this isn't the story of her defeat. It's the story of how she turned the cruelty of the world into the fuel for her rise. A story of resilience, revenge, and redemption. If you believe in the power of transformation, hit subscribe and join us for the journey. Let's start. Zariah adjusted her blazer in the elevator mirror, her coils perfectly fluffed and shaped. She'd spent all night prepping for this interview, Googling the company, reviewing her resume, choosing the right shade of lipstick. Not too bold, not too plain, just, enough. The elevator dinged. She stepped out into a glassy, modern lobby where everything screamed luxury. She took a breath and walked through the open door, smiling steady, heart racing. The panel sat waiting. 3 people, sharp suits, fixed expressions. One woman's eyes flicked immediately to Zariah's hair. A man in the middle did a quick double-take, then smiled. Tightly. "Zariah, is it?" The woman on the left asked, glancing at her clipboard, though she'd already seen her name. "Yes." "Thank you so much for having me," Zariah replied, forcing brightness into her voice. She sat down, her back straight, palms resting on her knees like her mentor had told her. "Don't fidget. Own the room." But the room already felt cold. "We've reviewed your resume," the man in the middle said. "Very impressive. Columbia. Top of your class. You even launched your own student startup. That's ambitious." There was something in the way he said ambitious that didn't sound like praise. "Thank you," she said. There was a pause. Too long. Then the woman on the left leaned forward with a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We're just wondering if you've thought about how your look might align with our client-facing image." Zariah blinked. "I'm sorry?" "Your presentation," the woman continued, tilting her head slightly. "We encourage our team to maintain a more polished aesthetic." Zariah's hands tightened in her lap. "I believe I look professional." Of course," the man said quickly. "It's just, when clients walk in, they expect a certain standard, a neutral presence, non-distracting." He smiled again like he'd just paid her a compliment. Zariah sat still. The words didn't come right away. Her pulse was loud in her ears. "I see," she finally said. "And my presence is considered distracting." The third panelist, who'd been silent until now, chuckled under his breath. "It's just bold," he said. "Not what we usually go for in corporate culture." She stared at him, her mouth slightly open. Then she closed it. "I appreciate the feedback," she said quietly. But something in her had already cracked. They went through the rest of the interview like it meant something, asking questions she knew she'd nailed. But their eyes never really met hers again. The room felt like a performance where she was both the act and the punchline. As she stood to leave, the woman said, "We'll be in touch," in that voice people use when they won't be. Zariah smiled anyway. Not for them, but for herself. She walked out with her back straight, heart pounding, jaw clenched. Behind her, just before the door shut, she heard one of them whisper, "That hair." She really thought. The door closed before the sentence finished. But the damage was already done. Zariah had been broken once, but not shattered. Every insult, every viral mockery had lit a fire in her that now fueled something bigger. She sat at her desk, screen glowing, fingers trembling, not with fear but with purpose. "I'm not building an app," she whispered. "I'm building a revolution." The idea was simple but powerful. A beauty tech platform that recognized, celebrated, and catered to the richness of Black hair and culture. Custom recommendations, history archives, community spaces, all of it rooted in authenticity. No filters, no apologies. Her inbox began buzzing. Coders, designers, creatives, people who saw what she saw. It was happening. Then came Carter Wynn. Smooth voice, sharp suit, a handshake that lingered a little. "Too long. You've got something real here," he said, eyes glittering with charm. "This could change the game." Zariah studied him. "So why do you want in?" He smiled. Because power like this, it deserves the right spotlight. I can help you scale, fast. It sounded like a blessing, but felt like a transaction. Still, she needed allies. In just weeks, the platform exploded with users. Testimonials poured in. Black women sharing stories, teens discovering their hair texture for the first time. It was magic, until it wasn't. Posts began circulating. Radical hair cult. Anti-white beauty propaganda. Keep race out of tech. Zariah stared at the headlines in disbelief. These weren't critics, these were campaigns. And they were working. Bad reviews flooded app stores overnight. Glitches that weren't there before suddenly popped up. News articles quoted anonymous users, claiming bias and toxicity. Zariah knew sabotage when she saw it, but investors didn't care about sabotage. They cared about smooth PR. We love innovation, one white venture capitalist smiled. But we're worried it's a little too niche, another leaned in. Too urban, a third waved his hand dismissively. Couldn't you just tone down the messaging? Zariah's throat burned. You mean my identity? They didn't flinch. It's about scalability. She walked out of that boardroom numb. The rejections piled up over and over. The same coded language, not a fit for our portfolio. Concerned about marketability. Maybe if the founder looked more mainstream? Then one night she stayed late at the office running tests. Her teammate Shay left her laptop open. Zariah wasn't snooping. She was looking for an error log. What she found instead made her blood freeze, emails, dozens of them. Between Shay and the same company that humiliated her in that interview. Subject line, weekly updates on Zariah's build. She couldn't breathe. Shay had been a mole, her trusted co-creator, feeding her ideas, her timelines, even user metrics, to her enemies. You don't understand, Shay stammered when confronted. They promised to buy me out. I didn't think they'd actually hurt you. Zariah laughed, cold, empty. They didn't hurt me. You did. She tried to fight back. Hired lawyers. Filed for breach of contract and digital sabotage. But within days, a team of high-powered attorneys buried her in legal filings, cease and desist letters, threats of defamation countersuits, a non-disclosure agreement attempt that would silence her forever. The message was clear: disappear or be destroyed. And then came the smear campaign, news sites painting her as unstable. Anonymous insiders accusing her of bullying, of reverse racism, of being a danger to investors. She was isolated, cornered, until Isaac Reyes showed up, former cop, quiet, scarred. He didn't smile much, but when he talked, it carried weight. I have tapes, he said. Recordings from inside the company. What they said about you, about black women, about the plan to kill your platform before it could scale. Zariah squinted. Why would you help me? He shrugged. Because I helped them once, and it cost me everything. They didn't trust each other. Not yet, not fully, but they knew the same enemy. Days later, something unexpected happened. A post. Darla Monroe, 4 million followers. A beauty influencer who usually stayed out of politics. She uploaded a video, no makeup, no filters, just her voice. They tried to tear this woman down because her existence threatened their comfort, Darla said. But her app? It made me love myself in ways I never could before. The internet moved fast. Within 24 hours, W. Crown Her was trending. Downloads skyrocketed. Media outlets who once ignored her were begging for interviews. Zariah's name was no longer a punchline. It was a movement. But power doesn't go down easily. The corporation came back swinging. Private threats, lawsuits, surveillance. She was followed. Her inbox flooded with hate. Someone tried to hack her servers. Her family received anonymous calls. But Zariah had changed. She wasn't hiding anymore. At a press conference, she stepped up to the mic, voice steady. They tried to erase me. Now they can't log on without seeing me. The crowd erupted. She wasn't just building an app, she was building a legacy. They could throw fire, but she had become flame-proof. They could try to bury her, but she had already grown roots. And now, the world was watching. The higher Zariah climbed, the harder they tried to pull her down. One morning, she woke up to a headline that made her stomach twist. Zariah Adesina sued for intellectual theft, fraud, and defamation. They weren't just attacking her app. They were coming for her name. Within hours, her bank accounts were frozen. The server hosting her platform went offline without warning. A technical issue, they said. It wasn't just business now, it was war. Then came the messages, threats, lies, twisted versions of her past, and photos of her apartment door, vandalized, graffitied with words she hadn't heard since middle school. Ghetto trash, monkey tech. Go back to Africa. Zariah stood in the middle of her living room, broken glass under her feet. The silence rang louder than any siren. She was alone, and they were trying to make her dangerous. She stared at the lawsuit papers, her name printed in bold letters. The charges were absurd, fabricated from twisted facts and outright lies. But the system didn't care about truth. It cared about power. And power was against her. She showed up to court the next week wearing the same afro that had once gotten her laughed out of a job interview. She sat at the defense table, spine straight, hands clenched in her lap. Across from her, rows of white faces, lawyers with cold eyes and fake smiles, a CEO sitting smug, like he'd already won. And the judge, older, dismissive, barely looked her in the eye. It felt rigged before it even began. They called her a manipulator, a fraud, an extremist hiding behind the mask of empowerment. Zariah didn't flinch until they played a video, heavily edited, spliced, out of context. It showed her yelling. Didn't show the harassment that came before. It showed her angry. It didn't show the pain. The courtroom murmured. Headlines were already being typed. For a moment, her voice caught in her throat. Maybe they'd won. Then the door creaked open. Figure stepped in, holding a flash drive. Isaac Reyes. He didn't ask permission. He walked straight to the judge, handed him the evidence, and said, "Play this." The courtroom paused. The judge, annoyed, finally agreed. The footage flickered. 3 boardroom security cams, phone recordings, audio files, Zariah's name, laughter, mocking her hair, calling her a diversity stunt. Her kind doesn't build empires, they build riots, the CEO's voice said. Silence fell like a storm. Every lie they told unraveled on screen. Every layer of their corporate mask peeled off. Zariah watched the faces of the jury shift. Disgust, shock, and then something else. Belief. The judge removed his glasses. For the first time, he really looked at her. The ruling didn't take long. The court finds in favor of Ms. Adesina. Gasps, cheers, cries. Zariah didn't move. Tears welled in her eyes. Not just from relief, but from something deeper. She hadn't just won a case. She had survived a system built to break her. The reporters chased her outside. Cameras flashed. Mics were shoved in her face. But she didn't say much, just smiled, finally, freely, and walked away. She didn't need to speak. The truth had already echoed loud enough. The day her app relaunched, it broke every record, 3 million downloads. 48 hours. Zariah sat at her kitchen table, same spot where she'd once wept over hateful comments. But this time, her inbox overflowed with partnership offers. Tech companies, media outlets, beauty brands, investors, all chasing her now. But she didn't answer right away, because this wasn't just about profit anymore. Her vision had become a movement. She stepped onto stages across the country, TED Talks, industry summits, youth panels, always in her truth, always in her crown. Young girls wore their hair natural again and tagged her app as the reason. Influencers started calling her the tech queen of identity. She just smiled. It wasn't about royalty. It was about recognition. Then came the moment she never saw coming. The same company, the one that fired her, mocked her, sued her, filed for bankruptcy, and they sent her a proposal. "We believe your leadership could restore our image. Would you consider acquiring and rebranding us?" Zariah didn't answer with words. She showed up. Same boardroom, same glass walls, same cold air. Except this time, she didn't sit across the table. She stood at the head of... The room went still. Some of the same executives were there. The same ones who once laughed at her. But no one laughed now. Zariah took a breath. "I'm not here for revenge," she said. "I'm here to rebuild what you broke." She rewrote every company policy, mandated equity in leadership, opened internships for marginalized youth, launched a division dedicated to funding underrepresented creators. She turned the company from a symbol of exclusion into a blueprint for change, and she did it without screaming, begging, or lowering herself. That was her revenge, her real power. A few weeks later, she found a plain envelope on her desk. No return address. Inside were photographs, grainy black and white stills of the disgraced CEO. In them, he was doing something criminal. Something career-ending, possibly illegal, definitely immoral. And there was a note. "Use these when you're ready to bury him." Zariah stared at the photos for a long time. She could post them, leak them, end whatever chance he had left of crawling back to power. She could destroy him. Instead, she burned them. Not because he didn't deserve it, but because she didn't need destruction to prove she'd already won. Power wasn't revenge. It was restraint. It was standing in the fire and not letting it consume you. The final interview she gave that year broke the internet. The journalist asked her, "What do you say to people who still think you were too bold from the start?" Zariah smiled, soft but certain. "They thought my hair made me less," she said. "Turns out, it crowned me queen." If Zariah's journey touched your heart, we'd love for you to be part of this movement. Her story isn't just about overcoming adversity. It's about the power we all have to rise, no matter what others may say. If you believe in the strength of resilience, share this story with someone who needs it. Leave a comment telling us what inspired you, and don't forget to hit the like button if you feel a connection. Your support means more than words can say. Subscribe to join us for more stories that celebrate the beauty of strength and self-love.